Well, before I start this morning, I need to clear something up. For those of you in the balcony who can't see quite this far, you've had some questions over the last few months. We've had some questions from our live stream audience concerning this one deal. I even have had an elder to approach me and ask me about this, so I need to full light. I want you to watch right here, okay? And I'm going to clear it up. That's not a stain, and it's not a wasp. One of our elders was extremely concerned one Sunday thinking it was a wasp. Let me just clear it up. It's a logo. It's a brand. I didn't put it there. I didn't ask for it. It's a brand that comes with the pants. Now, some of you have asked, where do you get them? Because you really kind of like the brand. You like the logo. Well, I'm sad to say we don't promote businesses here. We don't promote products here. But if you talk to a guy named Eddie Bauer, he can probably help you with the issue. Okay? I'm just saying. But it started in our balcony, so thanks, guys, for being attentive. But it was like, does Jackie ever wash his clothes? I mean, it's the same stain every week. Yeah, that's okay. One person says something, it really doesn't resonate. But when 10 of you are kind of concerned about my wardrobe, at least it wasn't a malfunction. That's one reason I keep my shirt tail out. You just never know. Boy, my mind is just really racing. I could keep going, but I won't. Well, I'm glad Ben mentioned baptism because we get really pumped up about that at Remade Church. And here's the deal for you. I'm going to be talking a little bit more about it in the next 2 weeks. But Tasha, our children's pastor, is probably doing the best job I've ever seen anybody do because she's teaching your children about 3 components concerning baptism. 1 is sin, 2 is salvation, and 3 is baptism. And I looked at some of her materials this past week, and if you are an adult and you're not sure what baptism means, I would encourage you to go downstairs, find Tasha, and say, can I borrow some of the booklets? They're very thin booklets, but they explain it in children's language. But it's probably, I'm going to be using some of it in the next 2 weeks. It's that good. So if you have questions about baptism, some of your kids are already signed up. You might want to think about it as a family. Perhaps you were baptized when you were young at the request of your mom or dad, and you didn't make the decision. But baptism is really a decision that a believer needs to make. So if you're kind of on the bubble, I hope you'll get involved. It's one of the best days of the year for us. All right, there will be an offering received at the end of this message. So if you are wondering about that, when the baskets pass, they'll pass near the end. Here we go. Glenn Gunter. Some of you know that name. Glenn was a very active part with his family at Remade Church for a long, long time. So active that he decided to study for the ministry. And he ended up an ordained minister, and he's serving in another local church today. I was very fortunate. Roger Worley and I got to participate in Glenn's ordination service. So it's a very impressive service to watch, not just because I was in it, but I kept thinking, what can I tell Glenn that's going to make a difference for his ministry? Because he was just starting out, and I've been in it a long time. So I thought back to the first day that I was in seminary, which is kind of Bible college, sort of. First day in seminary, it was right after the first 4 years of college. And I was sitting in a classroom with about 30 other young men who felt called to do Christian ministry. And the university brought in an old pastor. And you could tell he had been around a long time, kind of shuffled his way to the podium. And I'll never forget the story he told. He said, young men, he said, here's what's going to happen in your church. And this was in a system where babies were baptized. Today we do blessings for babies here and baptism for believers, adults. But he said, here's what's going to happen in some of your churches. He said, someday there's going to be a young mom and dad to bring their baby up front to be baptized by you. And he said, everything may be okay. But he said, chances are, because this is a very young couple and they may be dressed very trendy. And he said, the mama may have on something that's a little revealing. Might even be low cut, young men. And we're like, well, yeah. Because we were stupid. He said, when that young woman brings that baby up to be baptized, he said, everybody sitting in your congregation, they're not going to be looking at them. They're going to be looking at you, seeing where you're looking. So he said, my advice to you young men is very simple. Always keep your eyes on the baby. That was actually funnier than that 40 years ago. But it was good advice. I thought he was just trying to be funny at the time. But as I've grown in ministry over these years, now I know what he was trying to say. And it wasn't about baptism. It wasn't about babies or, well, anything start, well, okay. It was simply this. Young men, stay focused on your work. That's what the whole thing was about. Don't get distracted, young men, when you're in ministry, because distractions will cause you problems. When you're working, distractions can get you hurt. And the only reason I tell you that is because tomorrow you're going to probably be not working, because it's Labor Day. Labor Day's been around a long time, and originally it was to celebrate the American worker. Don't get distracted about your work. And they would say, take a day off, enjoy it, so that you'll be ready to come back to work the next day. It became a holiday in the late 1800s. But over time, it kind of lost some of its glitter. And today it's a bit different. Some just say, well, it's the official end of summer. You go back to school, everything kind of changes, fall's coming. Some see it as a time just to go to the stores and get great deals. It's that one day a year, the Labor Day sales. But while history has shown us that our work, our labor, is really a celebration of who we are and what we do with most of our waking moments. For most of us, just a day off work. Just kind of a freebie. And that's okay. So I don't know what you'll do with tomorrow, but I do appreciate what you're doing with this morning, because you could be anywhere and you're here. For those of you who are watching live stream, thank you. You could be doing anything around your house, but you're tuned in. So thank you. But see, we celebrate a different kind of work in the church. We celebrate Christian work. It's not a one-time-a-year deal. It's an ongoing thing. It's a continual celebration that we do here concerning God's kingdom workers. Now, let me tell you how we celebrate it. We celebrate it by letting you know. This is simple. This is just so simple. Without you, you may feel that you are so unimportant. But without you, the church is sunk. It just is. Without you, we have an empty room. Without you, there are no hands to do the work of God in this world. Every time in the local church someone says, somebody ought to do something about that, the somebody's you. It's you. And it's me. Every single time. There are no contract workers here. We don't say, okay, let's go out and hire some people just for the day, just to do this. We can make the church work with contract. No. When a person says yes to Jesus, they become a contract worker. So if you have said yes, if you've said you believe in Jesus Christ, then actually you're not a contract worker, you're a covenant worker. Because God says, I'm going to make a covenant with you. It's kind of a contract. It's not in writing. God says, I'll make a covenant with you. He says, I'm going to give you a lot of neat things to do on this side of heaven. I'm going to give you eternity in heaven. And in return, I want you to do the work that I've gifted you to do. That's all he asked. Just to do the work he's gifted us to do. So understand that you are God's plan A. And he'll never have a plan B. We're it. Tag. We're it. Now let me show you in the scriptures how he set it all up. If you have a Bible with you or your device, you can turn to 1 Corinthians chapter 12. And I'm going to start in verse 4. This is New Living Translation. 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 4, it starts like this. There are different kinds of spiritual gifts, but the same Spirit is the source of them all. There are different kinds of service, but we serve the same Lord. Verse 6. God works in different ways, but it's the same God who does the work in all of us. Verse 7. A spiritual gift is given to each of us so that we can help each other. That's how we celebrate Christian Labor Day. And tomorrow we'll celebrate Christian Labor Day. Next week we'll celebrate Christian Labor Day. It's when we use what God gave us to do one thing, help people. That's it. Remember a few weeks ago we talked about the fact that different is good? And that churches who celebrate different tend to be strong, growing churches. Remember in the Old Testament, we learned a few weeks ago that sameness was good, different was bad? Especially with men, you know, the circumcision thing we talked about, very uncomfortable conversation. But God wanted everybody to be kind of going in the same direction, on the same page, so to speak, because what he was building was not a church. He was building a nation. He was building his people Israel. Now, he's not going to do that again. You know, don't think that God's going to build America into his holy people. No, his holy people are the Jews. He has a chosen nation. By engrafting through Christ, we get to be a part of all that. But starting in the New Testament, he stopped saying, I'm building a nation, and he started saying, I'm going to build a church. So sameness was not good anymore. Different became better. Sameness in the church has never been a good thing. Ever. But the church tried. They tried to make it good. I fault the leaders for this. I don't fault you guys who sit in the seats or who are just working your gifts. I fault the leadership of the church for centuries and centuries, because what the leadership did in the local church, and some of you may have sat in those, I've led them before. The local church would say, dress like us, smell like us, sing like us, think like us, live like us, and we will let you in. And you know something? That worked for a while. It worked. Everybody tried to be the same because everybody wanted to fit in. It worked because people back in the day, they were scared not to be a part of the church, because the church would say things like, you know, you leave the church, you get a demon. You leave the church, the boogeyman's going to be, I mean, you know, people were scared to death to not be a part of the church, even if they could just get their name on the roll book. Not the book of life with Jesus, but the roll book of the church. If you wanted to really make people mad, purge the roll book in the church. You know, it didn't matter if they ever came. It didn't matter if they ever showed up. It didn't matter if they ever gave a dime. As long as their name was on the roll book, man, they felt like they were in. It was like a holy insurance policy. No matter what happens, my name's on the roll book. And the leadership sold it that way. And the church just became more and more ineffective. Because your name might be on the roll book, but you never had to do anything. You never had to show up. People became spectators. They would say, we're paying the professionals to do the work while we sit in the seats and watched. And all that stopped working. We saw it about 50 years ago. It just stopped working. You know why? Because God never designed his church to work that way in the first place. So dress like us, smell like us, sing like us, think and live and act like us, and we will let you in. And then in some of your lifetimes and in mine, you had all these different kind of people. They didn't fit the mold. They didn't look right, and they didn't smell right, and they didn't talk right and act right. And the church leadership in many places, they were not about to break their molds to let different kinds of people in. I mean, you break the mold, and somebody might show up that had been drinking too much, or been out drugging the night before, or running around in places and with people they shouldn't be running around with. I mean, you open the church doors to those kinds of people, and man, what's this church going to come to? That was the thinking. I understood it, but the thing that always bugged me most, you ride by a church like that, and what do you see on their sign? Somebody want to say it? Everybody welcome. Everybody welcome. It hadn't been too many years ago, Jackie and I, we were riding by one of those signs, and we knew the leadership. It was a pretty judgmental place. And they said, pancake supper Saturday night, everybody welcome. I said, well, I'll take 400 or 500 people. Bet they weren't expecting that. And it really wouldn't matter, even if they had enough pancakes. Some would probably not be welcomed. So they had the sign out. But then when everybody tried to show up, they figured out that they weren't welcome. And everybody knew it. Those on the inside, they knew it. Those who were trying to get in, they knew it. So what did all of these different kinds of people do? Well, they just went away because the church wouldn't have them. Over the last 22 years, a lot of things have changed in my mind about church. But one of them was a painting that I saw. Now, I don't remember where I saw it, and I don't remember how I could find it. I've looked on the internet, I can't find it. But I do remember seeing it. It was a painting of a great traditional church, had the steeple, and everything was just in perfect place. And the painting was of a winter time, and you could see at the church front door, and then right beside it there was a window, and you had, I think there were 3, maybe 4, you could see them from the back side, really reject, ragtag kind of people, and they had their hands up against the church window, and they were looking into the church at the really warm, cozy worshipers. I didn't think much about it until I looked closer. At the front door of the church, in this little painting, right above the door lock, they had a sign. Members only. I can close my eyes and still see that picture today. And it haunts me. And it's one reason, and I'm asked this from time to time, do you have a membership at Remade Church? Yep. Anybody in here believe in Jesus? If you do, say yes. Yes. You a member. That's it. There's nothing to sign except your check. Nothing to sign. You don't get a certificate. You get a job, if you'll have one, and that's about it. If you believe in Jesus, you're a member. You're a member. 22 years ago, a small group of people, we got together and we became Remade Church. And I remember telling the story of that little members only sign, and I remember people in the room were saying, we're going to tear that sign down. That sign is not going to be a part of who we are. And 22 years later, it's still not a part of who we are. Because we said, we're going to invite rejects into this place. And doggone, you showed up, surprised us. Well, why would we do that? It's because the Bible told us to. The gospel told us to. I want you to look again at the same scripture I read before, and I did this one on purpose. I want you to read it again, and on the screen I've got some things highlighted, and I'll just give you some voice inflections to highlight it for those of you who are live streaming and you won't be able to see the screen. Perhaps you'll see it pop up on the bottom third. Here's the way it reads now. 1 Corinthians 12:4. There are different kinds of spiritual gifts, but the same Spirit is the source of them all. You see, God the same, you and I different. That's good. That's the way it's supposed to be. Verse 5, there are different kinds of service, but we serve the same Lord. God's the same. You and I are different. Our service is different. Our gifts are different. That's a good thing. God works in different ways. That's through you, through me. He works in different ways, but it's the same God who does the work in all of us. Same God, different people, different gifts. A spiritual gift is given to each of us, every one of us. Every one of us who say yes to Jesus Christ. It's given to each of us. Why would God give us a gift? Oh, so we can help each other. You thought church was complicated. It's not complicated at all. We're given gifts so we can help each other. So when different people come to a place like Remade and they feel welcomed and then they feel loved and then they make a decision, I'm going to work with all of these other different weird people. When they make that decision, I'm telling you, it'll change the world. It can change the world. I mean, you find a church that operates on love plus spiritual gifts, and I encourage you to plant your roots there and never leave. This may not be it for you, but I can tell you of a few churches that operate on love and spiritual gifts. So if this church isn't it for you, and you don't have to be mean, all you have to do is say, hey, Eric, this church isn't for me. I'll give you the name of 2 or 3 others that may be. Because they're not our competition. We're all on the same team. But I can tell you, Remade is one of those churches. We operate on love plus spiritual gifts. We work really hard here to major on the majors and not even think about the minors. Well, what's the major? It's lives that are remade. When lives change, that's the major here. It's really about the only one. And you're going to see some people who have experienced life change in 2 weeks. You're going to see some people go into the water, and they're finally going to tell you and whoever's watching, this is from, I have been remade. I'm different now. That's the major. That's the major thing in life. Turn from sin, and grab Tasha's pamphlets. Turn from sin, believe in Jesus, and be baptized. I hope you're going to be one of those people in 2 weeks. And if you're not, I hope you'll be one of those people like one of our elders said. I asked, what do you want to pray for our baptism service? And one of our elders said, I pray that everybody who's a part of Remade Church will drive the 9 miles, even if they're not going to get wet, because we need a lot of cheerleaders, and we do. Boy, it's worth it. About the only thing that'll ever change a life-changing church is when we forget why we're here. It's when we stand in pulpits and we teach classes and we answer questions nobody's asking. Or we're fighting battles nobody cares about. I don't know how many church embarrassments you have. I've got a pretty long list. I ought to write a book. But one of my greatest embarrassments was I was the leader in a church before Remade. And I spent 4 months one year. I spent 4 months fighting some people in that local church over the height of a Christmas tree. Had one lady who was heaven bent on a 14-foot Christmas tree. I thought that was about the dumbest thing I'd ever heard, because it should have been a 16-foot Christmas tree. And I went toe to toe. Every time there was a meeting, I'm sure people were putting their helmets on like, man, they're going to fight over a Christmas tree. And I was serious about that. I didn't care a thing about that Christmas tree. I didn't like that lady. And she didn't like me. She even told me one time, walking out there, she said, I don't like you. And I said, well, I like you just fine. Lied like a dog. I lied. Now, I'm telling you, I loved her spirit. I loved her soul in Christ. We just did not, what do you call it, jihad? You farmer kind of people. You know, we didn't get along. 4 months. That's extremely embarrassing. 4 months. The local church fought over the size of a Christmas tree, and I wonder how many people were dying around us going to hell. That's pathetic. That's pathetic. So what do we do here? We stay focused. Best we can. We stay focused. And every now and then somebody will try to pull us off, but we're pretty good now of staying focused. We stay focused on our purpose. And I'm telling you this, when you get involved in our purpose, chances are good you're going to want other people to get involved with it too. What is the purpose? The purpose of Remade Church is to be a safe place for people to explore the claims of Christ, experience life change, and grow to full Christian maturity. I mean, just look at that purpose. Isn't there someone you know? Come on. Isn't there someone you know that you would like to share that purpose with? Someone, anyone. Surely you know of someone. See, when you bring them, that's what we will do for them. And many of you can say, I know that's true because you did it for me. What we do, when you bring them here, we use a lot of different tools here, and we have a lot of different looks, but it's all to show people 4 things. Now, I want to show you the secret. And, you know, I don't know what you're going to do with this. Some of you already understand it. But this stuff is exciting. I'm telling you, if you get people here, if you will get your friends here, if you will get your family here, we're going to give them these 4 things. Please do not make me even think about buying a church bus. Don't do it. We don't need, you've got a church bus. You're driving one. If you have an empty seat, that's good. Here's what we're going to do for people. If you want a great church experience, here's what we do in a lot of different ways. We say, number 1, become a Christian. Number 2, get in the Bible, because when you get in the Bible gets in you. Number 3, make room for each other's spiritual gifts. And number 4, make allowances for each other's faults. I've been in churches that did number 1, 2, and 3 really well, but when it came to number 4, if you were different, you were out. I think we specialize on number 4 here. So, Remade Church, not just a place to go. It's living, it's breathing, it makes a difference in people's lives. Last week, Ben started talking about this. He started kind of building a framework around that. And he talked to you a bit about small groups. And, you know, if you're tired of hearing about small groups, that's great. You know, maybe you need a nap because you're going to hear a lot more. We'll put you right to sleep when we talk about small groups. We even brought someone on board, Tiffany Grubbs. Thank you. Thank you. And the rest of the church is saying, why are they applauding that? Because up until 3 weeks ago, Tiffany has been, I interviewed Tiffany. I've known her family most of my adult life, interviewed her. She's on board with us. She's on the staff, and I didn't know her name. I didn't know Tiffany Grubbs had an S on the end. I thought it was Grubb. That's the way God spelled it. I mean, I don't know who messed it up. Until her husband, Larry, had a talk with me. His real name is Larry, but we call him Wayne. I mean, can you see my confusion on all this? Rick Warren. He's the pastor of Saddleback Community Church in California, one of the largest churches in the world. And pretty much what they do is they give you Jesus on Sunday, and then they put you in a small group. And he was once asked, he said, how big do you think Saddleback Church can be? And at the time, they were about 30,000 people active. And his answer was amazing. He said, how many houses are there in Southern California? You see, we think we need bigger buildings. But wherever you live, you got a church. However many houses there are here, that's how big the church can grow. So we want you to explore small groups, but we want even more for you than that. See, small groups is just one of those methods that we use to achieve our purpose. We don't want you to stop until you reach full Christian maturity. We believe it's going to take the rest of your natural life. So let me tell you, to most of you, welcome home. But here's what else I want you to see. We have plenty of room, if you'll look around, for more. For some of those different people. Plenty of room, plenty of seats for more. You're sitting in a church today. We are not satisfied with just where we are. Now listen, we're grateful for you. I'm grateful for you. I hope you're grateful for me. But there are a lot more of yous out there than there are in here. There are a whole lot more. And you know who they are? I don't know them. I don't know who you know. You don't know who I know. So we bring them here. Some of these people, listen, this is awesome. Some of these people don't know it yet, but they're going to meet Jesus Christ through Remade Church. And they have no idea that they're going to meet Him through Remade Church. Some people are going to grow to full Christian maturity through Remade Church. And right now, they don't have a clue. That's awesome. But here's the truth. Most of them will never find their way to Remade Church without your help. They will not stumble across us. 2 weeks ago, I mentioned a story from Matthew 16. Ben floated it just a little bit. I want to read it. It's Matthew 16, starting in verse 13. If you're keeping score, I'm wrapping up now. Matthew 16:13. When Jesus came to the region of Caesarea Philippi, He asked His disciples, who do people say that the Son of Man is? Well, they said, some say John the Baptist, some say Elijah, some say Jeremiah or one of the other prophets. And then Jesus asked them, but who do you say that I am? And Simon Peter answered, you're the Messiah. You're the Son of the living God. Verse 17. Jesus replied, you are blessed, Simon, son of John, because my Father in heaven has revealed this to you. You did not learn this from a human being. And now I say to you, you are Peter, which means rock, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the powers of hell will not conquer it. And I want to tell you something. I've missed that scripture in teaching for a lot of years because I always focused on the word church. And the word church is not the focus in that passage. Because if you take that word church that you're looking at right now, in verse 18, and you put it in the Greek language, which is what it was spoken in first. The word was ecclesia, and it had nothing to do with religion. Zero. It just meant a group of people who hung out together. That's all it meant. Jesus could have been easily saying, that ecclesia of thugs over there on the street corner. Or that ecclesia of people at the arcade. Or that ecclesia over there at the mall. All it was a group of people. So the word church here, that's not the operative word. But if you look carefully, the operative word is right before the word church. The operative word, Jesus said, is my. We might be a group of rejects. And I say we are. You may say misfits, but we're His rejects. We're His ecclesia. We're His group. We're His gang. We're His church. Our boss really is a Jewish carpenter, and God called him His son. And understand this before I cut you loose today. The church was the only thing Jesus left behind with the potential to change the world and bust the powers of hell wide open. That's the only thing, was church. So I think it's time we started talking like it and acting like it, because that's who we really are. That's who we are. I'm excited for you, and I'm excited for me, because we have found this place, His church. But you know who I'm most excited about? Is people I don't know, people who aren't even here yet. People who don't know Jesus, people who don't know baptism, but they will. They're going to know. As soon as you bring them. As soon as you bring them, they're going to know. Boy, that clock's ticking. We'll be here next Sunday morning waiting for them. So bring them in. All right. You guys with kids downstairs, remember that you can pick them up at 11:15. So you may want to hang out in fellowship here just a little bit. And after I pray, we're going to receive an offering for the morning. So if you'll bow your heads with me. God, it really is exciting to know there are going to be many life changes through Remade Church, and we don't know it exactly. The people who are going to change, they don't know it. But I think about every disciple that Jesus called. Just a few minutes before He looked at them and said, "Follow me." God, they had no idea that they were going to change the world. God, I don't know if and when you'll ever need another evangelist like Billy Graham, but why should it not be someone here? Why should it not be one of our kids, one of our grandkids? Why should it not be? They're going to be great church leaders. They're going to be tremendous church volunteers who just serve people every day, and they're going to assist you in changing lives. Why shouldn't those people be sitting here today? Why shouldn't they be listening by a live stream and watching us today? Why can't we be the ones? I say we can, Lord. And I'm going to ask you to put that passion in the hearts of every person who calls Remade Church their home. Because it's time to get on with life change with people who don't know you. Because that clock is ticking. And we're not going to let the powers of hell win any more lives than we have to. So thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.